everyone. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We're back here again with, I guess, talking about something or one of the things that's most pressing on our minds this season. The COVID-19 pandemic has, brought with it quite a few things that's upended a number of things within our ecosystem. And at Star House Files Lagos Fashion Week, we think it's important to use conversations to try to drive change in any way we can. And sometimes we're not always trying to solve a problem. Sometimes it might just be, having a group of like minds together just to share and just to reassure ourselves that, guess what, you're not alone in this. And tonight, I decided to invite, a few titans in e-commerce across the continent, and some of the businesses are not based within the continent, but they're doing quite incredible things to drive change and to create opportunities for access to market for fashion brands from the continent and beyond. So considering there'll be quite a few billionaires, coming from this group in a few years, since e-commerce is currently poised to, I read something today about e-commerce. Online sales is probably the only thing that's going to be flat for now, whereas everything else is probably going to be projected sales will drop by 9.6% in the next year, and possibly a forecast of up to 20% drop in sales. We know as well that fashion is not front burner for a lot of things. It's not an essential item. Neither is beauty, but we're here. And I also think that predominantly around here, we've relied so much on bricks and mortar, that physical experience. We're very warm people, and I'm sure everywhere else in the world where you walk into a store, get to experience the clothes. But for once, your business model is what looks like it's going to save the day. So I thought, let's get in here, talk about it, and let's tap into your vision. Share your vision a bit more with us in terms of where you see the next couple of seasons or the next couple of years, and can e-commerce really work for African fashion? So, can we do quick intros? Starting with, I'm looking at Ayotunde, so I'm just going to. Can you tell us a bit about yourself and what you do?
Hello, hey, my name is Ayotunde, CEO and co-founder of Jendaya. So Jendaya is a luxury platform for both Western and African luxury brands for continental Africa and Africans in the diaspora. So in terms of my background, used to be in finance, worked at companies like Morgan Stanley, Societe Generale, and recently completed a MSc in entrepreneurship. Started Jendaya officially in about 2018. A lot of learning and unlearning, which has been important to really get us to this point and this stage where we're at now, where we've launched the first part of our pilot, which is a content-only website, to really glean information from our would-be customers, both, as I said, in diaspora and on the continent, and really familiarize them with what we're offering and build trust. And then to come later this year, our e-commerce pilot in 3 cities. So first in London, then in Lagos, and finally in Accra. So a lot of things coming.
Oh, cool. And IJ?
Hi, I'm Ijeoma Ogbechie. I'm the founder and CEO of Avivere. My background as well as finance and technology with Bank of America Merrill Lynch. We started Avivere, my team and I, we started Avivere about 2018, but prior to that, we'd been testing the waters to just see what people were saying and thinking. The whole idea behind Avivere really is to try and bring to the West a different form of contemporary African fashion. So we were trying to redefine contemporary African fashion. And we tend to curate pieces that have traditional elements to them, but still have a modern aesthetic wrapped around it. So the whole idea for Avivere is to be able to buy our pieces and incorporate it in your wardrobes. Ideally, I want an Avivere woman to have 5% of her wardrobe coming from avivere.com. That's the goal.
Oh, thank you. Nisha?
Hi, everyone. My name is Nisha Nkanabar. I am Tanzanian living in Tanzania. I am the founder of Industrie Africa, a platform that launched in 2008 as a designer discovery platform that was really meant to sort of capture and catalyze the voice of African fashion from the point of view of the industry. So translate what African fashion is into very much a global ecosystem. We are a continent-based platform offering first-hand access into the world of high-end and emerging African fashion, and we are launching a new iteration of our platform in a few weeks, actually, which is a pretty big launch for us. It's very pivotal. After a few years of sort of getting incredible responses and incredible engagement from different stakeholders around the world and buyers and most importantly customers, we've realized that without sales, you're not closing the loop. And so we're launching Industrie Africa into a hub of really commerce, content, and connectivity, where we're kind of creating this 360-degree space to supercharge what it means to shop and consume and engage with African fashion.
Great. Oh, Omoyemi is out.
Okay.
I imagine it's your turn, Amira. You can introduce yourself.
Okay, I'll go next.
Sorry, guys.
Oh, no worries.
My name is Amira Rasool. I'm the founder and CEO of the Folklore. We're an e-commerce and wholesale distribution platform that streamlines the process of getting African luxury goods in the hands of international customers. So we work with over 30 plus designers from the continent and the diaspora. We do high-end men's and women's apparel, accessories, lifestyle products, and we're now starting to launch beauty in the fall. So our main goal is to not just give people the access to shop these products, but to give people a really great experience when they're doing it. When we're selling at a luxury price point, we need to make sure that people are getting a luxury experience. The checkout process, the content that we're creating, we're really big on creating really great content. And the reason why we named it the Folklore is so that we could tell stories. So we incorporate architecture, interior design, art. You know, we have a podcast where we feature all of these amazing people, and it's really not just selling Africa to the world. It's selling these stories, telling these stories, allowing people to have a platform that is, you know, comparable to an Essence or a Net-a-Porter. And that's our primary goal with what we do.
Hi, Moulaye.
My turn. Hi. So my name is Moulaye. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Afrikrea.com. So to simplify, what we do is that we sell trust, simply, and in different ways, because we do a lot of things. We're probably most well known for our platform, Afrikrea.com, that is a marketplace for all things made of Africa. What else can I say? Basically, our goal is to build the global infrastructure for African culture, and we're pretty happy because we already have over $5 million of sale on the platform. So we're doing good, starting well.
You're doing good. So going straight into it, people. So do we really think e-commerce can deliver on its promises in Africa? I mean, considering, I don't want us to talk or belabor the problems, you know, logistics, you know, all of that, but do we really think that we can get it right? Considering, you know, conversations out there, maybe Jumia and, you know, the experience in the last 1 year or the last 2 years, and they're supposed to have been, you know, like right there at the forefront of it. And then when we think about the fact that fashion in itself is different from household, you know, beauty and all those other things that seem a bit more easy to sell, do you think people are really ready to buy their fashion online?
Yeah.
I'm not sure about on the continent, because our customer base is mostly in the US and in Europe, where they already have an established, you know, relationship with buying online. So I think it's a matter of when you're on the ground and you're catering to people on the continent, it's a lot of structural things that I think need to be handled, because there are people who purchase from us who live on the continent. And I'm just like, dang, I wish I'm not sending this to you right now, because they're paying so much for shipping just for it to go back. And so, you know, wanting to find an alternative for them to say, hey, here's the platform that's actually, you know, for this space, or even having, you know, direct to consumer brands actually have their own e-commerce sites, which I think is something that's going to change in this period right now. A lot of brands are going to go direct to consumer, and they're going to cut out a lot of retailers because we can't buy wholesale the way that we used to and do certain things. So I think there needs to be a solution more, and I think that's what everyone here brings to that can cater to the people on the continent.
Okay, Moulaye, I'm quite keen to, you know, explore. So how have you guys done it? You know, because how have you been able to restore confidence in people that, listen, we're actually going to ship to you from the continent, and what we're shipping to you is what you're going to get. And you've been able to grow a huge customer base within the continent and in diaspora.
Yeah, the thing is, we are pretty particular in the sense that, yes, I'm based in Africa, in Ivory Coast. Our designers are based all over the world. So if I'm not mistaken, because it's changing a lot, all of the 7,000 designers we have, you have probably 50% that are in Europe. You have 30% in the US, and another 20% in Africa. So Africa was actually where we had the least designer at the beginning, but in the end, now it's the fastest growing number of designers. I think we doubled in Africa in the last year, or we tripled in Africa in the last year. Mainly because we moved to what I said, working on infrastructure. So to give you the answer, initially, I think the answer is just what you sell needs to really appeal to the person, because honestly, the thing that African fashion has that nothing else has is that it speaks to the mind and the personality of everyone. When you dress, you're telling who you are. And when you have something that speaks to your mind and your person and you want to showcase to the world, honestly, most of the time, people are willing to go to very, very intensive extent of amount they're willing to pay, or even time they're going to wait. So initially in Afrikrea, our big thing, and that's one of the things that we shared in our white paper report on African fashion, is that people are waiting up to 21 days in average to get a package. So designers were shipping the way they could. And that's something that I know it's important to know, is that we are not competing with Fashion Nova or Amazon or any other e-commerce in the world. What we are selling is so rare and so precious that people are willing to wait. So I think the big differentiator, and I think everyone that is in African fashion can know that and experience that, is that we have things that are precious and our customers are willing to wait for it. So I think the first thing was that. So initially people were doing anything they can. We had designers ship things through, what is the name in English? I'm sorry, I'm literally a French guy. So in English, it's GP. It's when you use, you know, the airline companies to actually, airline companies employee were taking packages.
Air freight. You're air freighting instead of
air freighting, you know, that's the normal way. But in Africa, we have something else that, you know, when the employees of the air freight companies, you know, when they take packages from people.
Oh, yes.
Which is borderline illegal, by the way, which is absolutely not legal.
You shouldn't share that, then.
But I'm telling the truth. Like, the true story is that at the beginning, a lot of the packages coming from Africa were coming through these actual, like I might say, informal ways. And when they were reaching France or US, someone had the role in the designers team to take it and shipping back. So just to say the extent to which designers were going through to actually simplify that and make sure that packages get to the customers. So that was the story at the time. Now it's much better, and that's why we have been growing pretty much in the US and also in Africa now, is that we have an exclusive deal with DHL over all of Africa and all over the world, basically, but especially in Africa, where people can ship now anywhere from Africa from $15 up to 2 kg to the US or France.
Oh, fantastic. That's encouraging. So I guess
it's just a matter of volume. It's just a matter of volume. To answer your question, it's a matter of, and that's the good thing about this type of connection, is that actually the more African fashion sells, the more everyone in it wins, because we can prove that what we are selling is actually a real business and a growing industry.
Oh, fantastic. And this brings me to the next question. And I want to ask IJ, so do you think African fashion brands can deliver on that promise, and you as well, Amira, to sustain your business? You know, I know what they deal with in terms of manufacturing, production, consistency with quality control. So is that a thing of the past? Do you think that, you know, we've gotten to that stage where we can expect that, guess what, you know what, like clockwork, you do the buying, and on a particular day you need to work on your inventory and start selling, they will actually deliver, because your business is pretty much, let's face it, your business model is pretty much dependent on them getting their acts together, really. So how does that work? Do you think we're there?
If I were to be honest, I would say we're not. Okay. But the positive is we are taking the steps to get there. Okay. In comparison to where the rest of the world is, we're still a bit behind, but I do see active measures being taken by different groups, different businesses to get us there. So my business is based in New York. I serve the US market and the UK market. I have had interest or purchases actually from the continent, the African continent, but in terms of volumes, it's predominantly the US and the UK. So when we started this business, that was the very first thing we asked ourselves: what are we going to do to mitigate any challenges or issues we may face with quality, production, on-time delivery? If they're faulty goods, how do we return? Just the entire logistics chain being based in the US. As we did more research, it opened my eyes to the fact that there are a lot of African designers all over the world that are still underrepresented. And especially the ones that are in the West, because they're in a space where there are a lot of other contemporary and luxury designers who have bigger platforms, who have louder voices, given the press that our designers also deserve. So they're in that space where they're trying to find a voice. Those on the continent are already coming together as a collective to create a unique voice. So I find that there's a slight difference between the recognition on both sides. So in doing that research, I discovered new designers that are based in the US and the UK. And our model was to form partnerships with them. So it wasn't just a case of, I'm going to order this quantity and this is what I need it by, deliver. It's more of a long-term partnership. How are we going to build together to ensure that year over year, we agree to a certain type of aesthetic, a certain type of SKUs or products that we're going to sell, and it's a collaborative effort. So with some of the designers, I look at what they've designed and they've actually sampled, and I give them feedback, maybe adjust the sleeve here, or maybe do this differently. That collaboration builds trust with the designers, and they know I'm serious in terms of what it is I'm trying to do. So we tend to work in a way that allows them to ensure that delivery is prompt, quality is good. If I then look at the designers that I'm working with on the continent, we've curated in such a way to ensure that those designers also have good fundamentals, right? You don't want to start going into, especially as a new business, you don't want to start going into a partnership with a designer who doesn't have the right infrastructure in place. So how's your business currently structured? What does your employee structure look like? How long does it take you to source your fabric? How long does it take you to produce? What's your lead time to deliver? We factor all that in, and you need to have proved that continuously over a period of time. And then we go into discussions and partnerships. So it's not easy. I'm not saying that this is something that everybody can get right, because there's still infrastructure issues on the continent that the private sector can't address alone. We need the government and other institutions to come into play. So I think with time, with these kind of forums, conversations, and hopefully bigger investments into infrastructure, you'll begin to even see better steps forward around production, delivery, and quality. Amira, I don't know if you see the same with Folklore as well.
No, I agree with a lot of what you said. We work with our brands in a similar way. Every designer has my South African WhatsApp number and my American iMessage number. So most of my correspondence with them is just like picking up the phone. What do you need from us? We also recognize that we have to meet them where they are. And we created a business model that, took the strategy that Western big e-commerce players use, and then adapt it to fit what the current state of African fashion is. So we recognize that the business model was going to be a really important part of what we do. And so we know we're catering to US and European customers who when they want their luxury, they want it now. They want to be able to pick it up, and Net-a-Porter does same day delivery within Manhattan. That's what they want. Whereas, I know it was mentioned earlier that, some people will wait for products on the continent because it's like something special. People here don't care. They're like, we want it now. And so we recognize that we needed to have the product here in the US. So we ship directly from New York. And that also allows us to control the quality control. So we are actually able to say, okay, we've received this and these don't meet our standards, so they're not going to go up on the site. So then we've now had that customer, we now have customer trust because we know that we're not going to send them something that doesn't meet those standards. So it's like, okay, I know that designers on the continent are working hard doing so many different things, so it's easy for them to miss something. So we're, the partner that's going to step in and say, hey, this is, something that we noticed. We're not going to be able to put it on the site. We'll send it back to you. Here are the adjustments that I think you should make so that the quality is now, up to standards, because we've had a lot of our brands that we work with, we also help them with pricing. And so we've increased their pricing a lot. So if we're going to increase their pricing, we need to make sure that the quality that our customers are receiving actually meet those same standards. So I think it's important to recognize that they're still in a place where we can't just be regular e-commerce partners. We have to be partners who are helping them across the board, whether, whatever they need. If they want to do a pop-up shop in New York, people know they can hit me up. If they want, an opportunity to connect with this person, they can, hit me up. So we can't think of it as just like hey, these are the clothes, we're going to take them and then we're going to sell them. And then also it's encouraging them and making sure that they are also setting themselves to higher standards. I always get on the designers, why haven't you posted on Instagram in a month? We can't just sell your clothes ourselves. Like, the Folklore, we do a lot of marketing and we do a lot of stuff, but I need you to actually do the work too. We have to work together. And I think a lot of it is just like, sometimes you got to kick people in the butt and be like, hey, look, if you're trying to do this, that, and the third, I know you said these were your goals, we're here to help you on the supply chain front, on the distribution front. You just got to make sure that you're doing your part. And I think that that's going to be, ultimately what, leads to a successful e-commerce company, and what's going to lead to, brands being able to work with not just, e-commerce companies that are exclusive to African brands, but, for companies outside of that space as well.
And
okay, so I'm quite keen because I think, Ayotunde, you have a different model, right? You're not going to warehouse. You're more like can you tell us a bit about that?
Yes. So we're similar to the Farfetch model. So a marketplace where we drop ship inventory from our partner vendors and brands. So just touching on what everyone has said, I believe that's where our core to innovation comes in, like as occupying different tenants in e-commerce for Africans, either in diaspora or on the continent. We have an innovation imperative to actually understand what the problems are that our customers are facing, and then the actual brands or the vendors that we want to work with. And so because of that, then, this time more than ever, we have to turn on that survival instinct. So what are the synergies? What are the areas that we can take advantage of and work together in order to, get over those issues that they're facing? And then, so that for us has been like the main thing in terms of developing what our business model is and talking to the brands and seeing how best we can, using that sort of model, how best they can manage their inventory and how best we can also work with partners and players like Moulaye mentioned, like DHL. They specifically have invested over 50 million in sub-Saharan African delivery since 2015. And they have things like DHL ECommerce, the DHL eShop, to really help people connect goods from the West and or within Africa, so across countries on the continent. So, we've been utilizing that. We've been utilizing aspects like What 3 Words, which kind of reimagine the postcode system specifically for the continent. So for us, it's about, as I said, just really turning on that survival instinct and that answering that call to innovate and really understand what the customer wants and the brands that we're working with, what are their pain points, and trying to overcome that to deliver the best global practice in terms of luxury e-commerce for us personally, and e-commerce in general for our customers and for our vendors and brands that we're onboarding and drop shipping their items to our customers.
Thank you. And Nisha, with Industrie Africa, I'm quite keen to see how that's going to play out, considering you already have an existing relationship with some of the brands, and how you're going to sort of ease that into an actual platform for commerce.
Absolutely.
Because
I mean, it's a great question, and I think what really sets us apart. Well, I mean, just to kind of backtrack a little bit, my background stems from editorial, predominantly both content and commercial side of different markets across India, from Vogue India to Style.com Arabia in the Middle East. So storytelling for me is an incredibly powerful tool, and that's kind of the premise and a really big pillar for Industrie Africa, and cultivating that sort of Pan-African industry voice and translating it to that global audience and speaking their language, quite frankly. Like many of the players here, most of our traffic, which we've cultivated over the past few years, I guess over half of it resides in the UK and the US. So there's definitely a major international and global element to what we're doing. We're not drastically changing our mission. We're supercharging it. We are currently in the middle of this, transformation that's kind of taking what we had initially, which is a designer discovery platform, into this 360-degree hub, as I mentioned, of not only commerce, which is a big part, I think, of our strategy, but also content, and really sort of exploring the market in that sense. And then on the other side, we launched as a B2B platform that will stay simultaneously running to the commerce and content side. So I guess, what we really do is resonate with stories that our customers are looking for, ones that are authentic, that are long lasting, that are, created slowly, which I think is principles that are embodied by African fashion largely. And I think as niche platforms, all of us, and serving, I guess, a niche in terms of the fashion industry, we all have not only a responsibility to empower, but also to change perception of consumption and patterns of consumption. Like everyone was saying, we have a very curated viewpoint as well when it comes to how we're refining and creating that, but also driving that through the narrative and the stories that we're telling as well. So we with the partnership with DHL we have as well, which is a dropship model too. So we're getting that sort of personal element from the designer directly to the customer. We're kind of able to create that whole loop, I think. And I think we all bring something different to the table. It's kind of amazing that we're able to have this really open forum conversation about something that we're all kind of in together.
Oh, thank you. Moulaye, you said something. You have over 7,000. How many brands do you have on the
platform? It depends. I think now it's 7,000, but we have over 100 every week joining. So basically, it's complicated to keep track.
So how do you manage all that? How does that work? You don't keep inventory. So tell me in a nutshell, because that's just making me dizzy. Do you warehouse stuff, or
No, we don't. We really don't. We are pretty much the best way for understanding how we work is pretty much Alibaba or Etsy. For those that are American, it's easier to relay. So basically, every designer manage the transaction and the shipping themselves. So now we have this huge number, but when we started almost 8 years ago, it wasn't like that. So basically, it was much easier to help and grow. Now, how we do it, the only answer is technology. The only way you can manage this amount of volume without losing the trust either of the buyer or the seller is technology. So we have our platform is different from everything like you have ever seen probably, because it's pretty specific. We developed everything from scratch. Everything on the platform is developed by our own team. So it's amazing. It's probably the biggest difference that we have, and also very operational in the sense that to do that, we have a lot of controls on the money. because we have our own system of walleting, allowing designers when they get paid to see the money, but they can only withdraw when the product comes to the buyers. And also because we add to that a lot of facilities for designers to save them a lot of time in pricing, in managing lost cart, in what else, or managing messaging. We have a ton of functionality to help everyone win time and communicate. For example, we have a lot of buyers in the US, like it's, I think 30% of our sales now, and a lot of sellers that are French. So we manage the translation for them also. So we have a lot of tools inside the platform that helps everyone communicate, work together. And I think the most important thing is that designers can be trusted. Honestly, it's our big difference compared to, I think, most platforms is that we control after the fact. We trust people by default. When you come on a platform, we don't curate, we don't try to get you into any type of control. We trust you. When you come, we trust you to keep the things happening and to satisfy your customers, because you want also to make a business about your passion. So we just let them start. And of course, we have the controls to make sure that if something goes wrong, we can not only refund immediately, but also make sure that somebody finds something else to meet their needs. So it's a lot of tech and a lot of trust. So it's pretty, and yeah, for the shipping part, it's easy. At the beginning, like I said, everyone was managing alone. So it was a mix of us giving the best practices by country, saying, okay, if you are in Nigeria, we recommend using this guy, this guy, this guy. If you are in France, use this. Now we are moving away from that because we realize that now we have the size to allow something that is much more efficient for everyone. So we negotiate now for every designer's tariffs, and straight from our platform, they can print DHL label, kind of like Shopify. So they can directly use the label from the sales they have, and it saves them a huge amount of time. We did that when we noticed that 30% of the designer's time when they start selling is doing the shipping. Because they lose time packaging, they make probably mistakes writing the names of the people, and afterwards they have to go to the actual place to ship and wait in line and do the actual administrative work and then pay. Now they don't pay, it's automatically taken from their wallet. They don't waste time to go there. The pickup is organized everywhere in the world to go to their home, take the clothing and give it to the right people. And it's at the best price they ever seen. So the idea is really to make it easy for them to do the thing they most want is create and talk to their customers. All of the rest will take care of it.
That's incredible. So which brings me to the next conversation topic. Guys, and Amira, you mentioned it, like direct to consumer. Why should, I mean, Google, everybody has a marketplace. Google, Facebook has one, Instagram has one. And in Nigeria, Flutterwave just launched one, meaning just you don't even have to do anything. We're here to make it easy for you. So I guess which is what you've all said, like, that's why people should come to you, your USP, your unique selling point. It's the hand-holding with the Folklore. It's Avivere treating you as partners, as, responsible people. It's Afrikrea saying, guess what, we trust you. You're welcome on the platform, come and do this. But I realized that why should I pay that extra 20% markup or 300% markup, for wholesale, when I can just go direct to my customer, speak to them directly on my Instagram, and right there and then make a sale. Some don't even need to build websites nowadays. You pop up on someone's Instagram and they're like, available in 5, available in 6 sizes. I got this shirt off Instagram. Like I didn't work. I just like, oh, cool shirt. So how does that work, or how is that going to work? Considering we're all publishers today, we all have tools within our reach to be able to sell. So what do we do?
Oh, for me, it's pretty easy. It's pretty much like I said, you need to solve something. For us, for example, it's not about the markup. We just divided by 2 our commission on the platform for designers. We went from a commission that was 15% and 10% to something that is now 5% or 8%, and just a monthly fee of $10. So yeah, you have to be competitive. You have to take out your money out of their way so that the money gets to their pocket. And we even went as far as, like I said, Instagram is going to be big. So we even created a way for people to create links to be paid on social media. And on this type of payment, we take 0 fees. So it's simple. Like, you need to realize that I'm not trying. For us, the solution is that we stop pretending that we are the one bringing you buyers to any sellers. We have a huge amount of buyers on the platforms. That's true. Probably one of the biggest in the world. But the idea is that our job is to get more money in your pocket from the work you do. So we're going to help you in every way we can. So of course, you cannot say people are not going to go on Instagram. It's ridiculous. Like, they have to go on Instagram. You have to tell them to go, even from your own hand. So the idea is to make sure that you are not in the way. And you're actually—
I like that, to say that, guess what, we're here, we're an additional source of income, you know, and to make it super attractive, like, this is how we can help you, support your business, tell your story at the Folklore, Industrie Africa, you know, we can tell your story, you know, communicate who you are as a brand. Avivere, we're there to hold your hand, look through your product, you know, give you feedback instantly that you might not really get, which, so I think it's more, it's, you know, you're going to be more hands-on, I guess. Is that what this means moving forward?
Yeah, and I think also I encourage our brands to have their own websites and have their own direct-to-consumer. And over the next few weeks, we're rolling out some things that are going to help these brands have their own direct-to-consumer sites. And I think it's because the way that we work, we're very curated. And so we're not going to take the entire collection. Some things don't fit with our aesthetic, and some things, you know, just don't work. So what we want to do is be able to allow the brands to have their freedom to sell whatever product they want. We don't want to limit them to just what they can sell with retailers. So we really encourage it, and we still recognize that it's hard for brands to do the e-commerce portion of it by themselves. So how do we help you with your direct-to-consumer e-commerce now is a question that we're answering, because you can see all the Business of Fashion articles and Forbes articles that have come out just based on quarantine, and it's, you know, forget retailers, let's go direct-to-consumer. So that's something that, you know, we understood, we read, and we started to pivot. And we think that it's valuable for these brands. Our main mission is to make sure that these brands can grow financially. We don't want the acclaim. We don't want that. We just want to see, you know, good being done, and we don't want to stand in the way of progress. And so I actually really encourage brands to go direct to consumer, and, you know, just use us as a way to market themselves a little bit better.
Just to jump on, sorry. Just to jump on what Amira was saying, I think having an e-commerce presence doesn't make you exclusively D2C or make you have an exclusively D2C strategy. I think there's room for, and there's always going to be opportunities to coexist and collaborate. I think if the crisis has kind of shown us anything, it's how globalized our world is today. And as a brand, I think it's more important, ever more important, to look at yourself in the greater ecosystem. What is your USP as a brand, and what are you bringing to the world? And how are you marketing yourself? It's not enough to have a design degree or even, you know, be able to sew. You need to have the marketing chops. It needs to be a 360 degree. It needs to be a 360 degree skill set, I think, in order to be able to sustain and run that business. And that includes, Omoyemi, you work constantly on sort of instilling production values into these brands in order to encourage scalability. And I think that's something as an economy we have to work on. But I think there's no excuse for a brand not to have an e-commerce presence in this day and age. There's also a huge economy from an African perspective for us to be more sort of self-reliant. So if anything, it kind of encourages the formalization of operations for a brand and allows for consistency in product and delivery in operations in all these different aspects. And kind of goes back to your earlier point about timelines and calendars and you know, how those are sort of all over the map when it comes to how different designers work. So I think that formalization and that structure encourages that consistency.
And what I was going to say, what we have to remember is the business of fashion. It's not just about curating wonderful pieces. It's a business. There's money to be made and bottom lines to be met, and people have to be paid, you know? So for us at Jendaya, as everyone's mentioned, it's about curating the inventory we're onboarding. We're also telling stories via our content. But what we're doing via our model, which is a drop shipping model specifically for the African brands that we're onboarding, luxury brands we're onboarding, is kind of nudging them sustainably towards a ready-to-wear model that works better with the drop shipping. So, and again, I say sustainably, so it kind kind of it makes sense. And we're seeing that the brands that we have onboarded so far, which I'm really excited about, can't really share them all yet, but you know, they're open to that. And what we're doing is we're helping them, we're assisting them in ways we can. So if they can't completely list because they don't maybe have a ready to wear collection, what we do is we're happy to buy wholesale and work and meet in the middle, work both ways with them. So I think that's something to also kind of bear in mind as we're talking about, you know, e-commerce working in Africa and what our USPs are. I think it's important to remember that, you know, retail plays different functions and there's different tenants within retail. You know, for some platforms it's about recommendation, others it's about experience, others it's about just the service, others it's about discovery. So I think we're all, you know, speaking to different elements of that. So I think again we all have our place and how we are helping the African brands on our platforms.
So I'll just round this by just saying one thing, and because everyone's pretty much said everything that, you know, that is critical to this particular subject or topic. But brands need to recognize that them having an e-commerce site as well helps in building that trust with the consumers that are not familiar with the African brands. So Folklore, Avivere, and Nisha to a certain degree, and also Jendaya, you guys are selling into a lot into the West, right? And as much as we're telling stories and we're really giving good content, we're still building the trust that Moulaye has been able to establish wonderfully, but we're still trying to build that. And we're in a space where people have to spend a lot of money. And to part with that money, you just don't want it to be a first-time customer. You want a repeat customer. That's the whole essence of building that relationship. And what I found at the early stages of Avivere is if a consumer comes to the site and they don't know who that customer, who that brand is, they go and research that brand first to see, A, does the brand really exist? 2, is it really a credible brand? Does the brand say what it does? Before they then come back to the site to actually make a purchase. So it's an educational process. So if brands own their own e-commerce site, in addition to selling, they're helping telling the story and building the trust. So the more of us that get into the space, the trust continues to grow and grow. So I'm really thrilled that there's 5 of us here having this conversation around selling to you know, to the West and in Africa as well.
Well
Thank
said.
you. That's well said, everyone. So I'm going to, you know, just ask a few questions. I'll start with Jendaya.
Okay.
Your vision for Jendaya is quite ambitious, and well, I love it. You know, it's go big or go home. So, I mean, why restrict the platform to African brands when you can open it to everyone? But what's the inspiration behind this, and how do you think you can establish presence in a sea of voices from like Net-a-Porter to Farfetch and multiple platforms that's, you know, trying to do, I mean, so yours is quite different, like everyone is welcome. So you're not focusing on just the African designers, but you're thinking about key international brands as well. Yeah. So
Yeah. Thank you for that. You know, so I'll try and answer it in different steps. I would say the first thing is, as everyone's mentioned, which is key to all of our platforms, I believe, is a true curation. So I believe on the team we have people who truly know that African luxury buyer well, whether they're in diaspora or on the continent. And because of that, we're curating the inventory, we're curating the stories we're telling. We're also to the point where we've kind of segmented that target customer in the diaspora and on the continent into 5 key segments. And then our marketing, the way we're telling our stories specifically for those segments are intentional and well researched. So we know how best to get them on board, to convince them, to build that trust, to be able to shop on Jendaya, both for the African luxury brands we're holding and the Western luxury brands we're holding as well. I'd say the second thing is we're at a pretty much earlier stage than I think everyone else here. So for us, what that has enabled us to do is really learn from our predecessors and learn from our peers, cherry pick and see what works, what doesn't work so well, and you know, fit ourselves into the conversation and make our offering right for what we believe is needed for the African luxury buyer on the continent and in the diaspora as well. I guess as well, one of the main things we want to be known for is streamlining the path between luxury inspiration and ownership. And Africa is the epicenter of that inspiration. And, you know, we've got great artisans, great designers who deserve to have that brand parity on a platform like ours, we believe, with well-known and big and even up-and-coming Western luxury brand names. So for us, I think, you know, and again, as IJ said, the six of us here, we're galvanizing that conversation. The more of us that get into this space, what we're doing is, again, validating the space, validating the talent and the brands coming out of the continent, and helping them, giving them that platform that they deserve, to be bought elsewhere, so in the diaspora on the continent. And I guess to answer your last question in terms of, you know, how do we intend to stand out? Again, I believe because of what we are doing, so again, Western and African brands and the model we're using and how we intend to curate and, you know, help and, you know, essentially kind of build up that ecosystem alongside and within Jendaya. I believe that because we're speaking to different tenets of what it is to do great luxury e-commerce and include Africa in that conversation, I believe there's space for all of us. The same way, as you mentioned, there's Net-a-Porter, there's Farfetch, there's Forward by Elaine Walker, there's, you know, there's Louis of Aroma. There's so many, and they're all occupying different aspects, and they're all doing great. Why not? Why can't we be that for continental Africa and the design and the talent that's coming out of that? So this actually proves to me that there is space for all of us. I mean, we can probably roll off about 15 names in the West, thread styling and all the like, doing what they're doing, but we're here and we're able to, you know, occupy different aspects of what it means to provide great luxury e-commerce, including Africa in that conversation. So, and that's what I believe Jendaya is, you know, is occupying a seat at that table.
Okay, thank you. Amira, there's something I've been quite passionate about, because I would have thought the future of retail would still be omni-channel. So yes, you have your bricks and mortar, but at the same time, you know, you have your online presence. Can you tell us a bit more about how you've been able to integrate the Folklore pop-ups and into your, like, the physical engagement offline, into your, how's that contributed to the online shopping experience, to build brands and, you know, create more visibility, not just for Folklore, but for the brands that you work with?
Yeah, so pop-up shops have been, you know, the biggest, you know, benefit that we've had since we've launched. We launched with a pop-up shop in New York. We've now done pop-up shops, multiple pop-up shops in New York. We've done Atlanta, Los Angeles, Oakland, and we'll do what we usually do in a month and a weekend at a pop-up shop. And that really reveals that brick and mortar is still a really important part of the business. I think maybe 16% of US sales are online now in the fashion space, but the rest are still brick and mortar. So we need to make sure that, especially introducing new brands, that customers have the opportunity to engage with these products. There a lot of times we have, even with e-commerce, some of the main problems is that we can't, some people are afraid that they can't return after they wear something, even if it falls apart or something like that. People want to be able to trust that they are buying something, especially when it's something that's new. So it's also been able to really help us understand who our customer is and what they want, because we're literally watching them put on the clothes. So like, I'm at every pop-up shop, like pulling pieces for people, putting them in the dressing room. And then because I lived in Cape Town for 2 years and traveled around Africa and met every single designer, almost every designer we work with, you know, was in their studios, have talked to them, have great relationships with them, I can say, oh yeah, no, this selfie jumpsuit looks really good on people who are like 5 feet, because the designer's 5 feet. She makes all of her stuff. Literally, I'm telling these stories. Same thing with West. The designer's like almost 6 foot. She makes these really long, cool wrap dresses, and I'm able to, you know, see the person who's 6 feet tall walking in, and they're like, "This is the dress for you." And so I think that, again, a part of our experience of, you know, being able to tell that story, because we know so much about our brands. And then also now being able to learn about our customers and being able to pinpoint and have that, like, you know, we'll do private styling, you know, in New York, we'll have like different people come in and talk to them. And we really just want to make sure that we connect with people as much as possible. And that's what pop-up shops allow you to do. And then also it's just like those immediate, like, quick sales. You can click out of a website and, you know, forget to go back. But when you're in the space, it's like those impulse sales, that's what really, really drives retailers. That's what really, really drives companies. And so that was another important part of our business model, to make sure that we have our products in New York so that we can actually be worried about shipping them, to customers everywhere, but also be able to have them so we can, jump around to, different cities and be able to sell those products in person. And I think that's something that we really have to lean towards. We have so many great e-commerce sites. We still need that brick and mortar space outside of the continent that's going to represent these brands too.
I think I agree with you as well, that there's still a place, especially when it comes to African fashion, that there's still a place where people want to touch and feel, experience. So yes, the trust is increasing and people, are familiar with some of the brands, but there's still that place for, can I just experience, and to experience the brand, or to be able to connect in a different way. So I think it's something that I've always thought, well, something that has to go hand in hand, even if, e-commerce is super successful and contributing significantly to sales for a lot of the brands. And which brings me to another topic that, another idea that's currently at the forefront of, that's being pushed this season. It's digital showrooms. And Nisha, I know Industrie Africa pretty much started as a content-driven platform, but you also had elements of creating like digital showrooms for people. Or did I miss that?
No,
is this something?
So we didn't formalize the structure as in a showroom where, I guess, how Amira is doing it, but we sort of launched as an experiment, you could say. And we saw that connectivity not only happen on the buyer side, but also the media side, as well as the styling side. And it was pretty incredible to see kind of those interactions with designers, which we were able to track, which we were able to see. And it kind of was the launch pad for our next phase and what we're doing. Like I said, the majority of our sort of clientele or our visitors or our followership comes from that consumer mindset, regardless of having stockists blatantly on the site and giving people full reign and full access to everything transparently about a certain designer and designer's page, including their collections and where they're from and where they produce. We still noticed that there was a huge gap. So what kind of we're doing differently in this time is we're using content to support our, e-commerce experience, but it's very integrated. We're creating shoppable edits. We're kind of integrating product and content and shopping and in a way that kind of matches fashion are doing. But very tailored to the continent. We allow the customers to uniquely navigate by country, by local textile, sustainability, artisanship. I think what we've had as we've launched, of course, it's been a pretty incredible journey. But what we've really been able to cultivate is a strong following, a really strong voice, a lot of press, and a really a global, readership or followership of people that span over 100 countries. So we launched with this idea of addressing the misconception circling the marginalization of Africanism. But what we're doing is trying to take that sort of showroom transparency and bring it to an e-commerce experience that is tailored and curated and familiar. And I think that's, again, similar to kind of what everyone's doing. It's that familiarity that comes with luxury product that you want to sell. So for us, having that showroom experience couldn't happen in isolation. It was really closing that loop.
Oh, okay, thank you. And Ijeoma, for us at Lagos Fashion Week, we've always, IJ has to go.
No, I'm back. I have to drop soon, but yeah, I can say
okay,
over here.
cool. Yeah, IJ, so we as a platform have always bought into your vision to support young talents and nurture them. We've been super super, super, super lucky to have you mentor like our previous Fashion Focus Fund winners. And thank you so much for all you do and taking your time out, considering, wow, you have a successful career as well, working in a Fortune 500 company. And, you know, we've also seen Avivere and the commitment you have to some of the brands that you're working with. So what's your vision for scaling up Avivere in the next like couple of years? Where do you see the platform, and how do you see it? You know, is this your the nurturing arm of Avivere? Is this something that you're going to expand and open to brands that's not just within, you know, within brands that you stock? Is this something that's going to stay, or is this something that we're just going to benefit from? because we're lucky to have you talk them through the creative and commercial as well, which is very rare. You either have people who are willing or can help nurture like a creative talent from the creative angle, but for someone to handhold you through the business side of it as well is something that's really quite rare. So it'd be good to find out, you know, what are your plans for scaling up and to strengthening that part of things.
Sure. I'll start with the business of fashion, and Ayotunde, you had mentioned it. Ultimately, right? It's great that we have many talented designers who bring to birth a lot of beautiful pieces, but at the end of the day, people need to run a business. And it's just been a passion of mine to be able to help mold emerging designers, structure a business around what they do. The talent is formidable. You see it year over year at Lagos Fashion Week and other fashion events. The business of fashion is very crucial for what we do as retailers as well, because we are in this for the long term, I hope. And for us to be able to sustain our platforms, we need these designers to be in it for the long term. We need their businesses structured from the ground up, so that year over year, whatever headwinds they face, they still have the ability to keep pushing through and growing, scaling, and ultimately becoming these big brands that, you know, that we hope that they become. And there are many designers coming into the space, lots of them, young kids who have great vision, but they need guidance. So the emerging side of working with emerging designers is essentially where I really want to spend more time and double down on. You know, over the past 2 years, I've been fortunate enough to work with Lagos Fashion Week in mentoring Emmy Casbit and Cynthia Abila. And as much as I brought things to the table to help them, they taught me a lot as well. They opened my eyes to the struggles that young designers are facing on the continent. It's not easy to have a passion and translate that passion to a business. It takes a lot of commitment. It takes a lot of hard work. It takes a lot of support. And working with them, they've taught me a lot of things about what emerging designers are facing. And that's where I'm going to be spending more time looking for more emerging designers I can work with, and ultimately partnering with them and stocking them on my platform as well. So Avivere is going to be doubling down on emerging designers. You heard that here first. In addition to that, we're going to be doubling down on technology. So Amira, you raised a very good point about pop-ups and people wanting to touch, feel, experience the products. So we've been talking to developers to understand how can we infuse technology in that process. And Omoyemi, I think I mentioned this to you earlier in the year that we're looking at that. We've not figured out the prototype yet, but the whole idea is to create a virtual dressing room for any consumer that comes to the space. So we do acknowledge that not everybody will adopt to that, but there is space for that, because not everyone has the time to go to a brick and mortar or to attend a pop-up. So we're making investments in technology. We're trying to be more efficient in our outreach, be more efficient with our communication with our customers, keeping them up to date as to what's going on in the industry, be it trends, be it information on emerging designers or designers that are out there in general. So we're part of this larger ecosystem that wants to ensure that at the end of the day, we want the rest of the world to see what we see in these designers. We know they're amazing. We know that there's talent out there, but we want to sell that vision to the world. So Avivere will be scaling technology. Avivere will be scaling emerging designers. And as we expand our platform, if we find designers that lend themselves to the aesthetic that we subscribe to, we'll be scaling in that department as well. But tech and emerging designers are the two key things for us right now.
Thank you so much. I know you have to run. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And it's a pleasure meeting everybody. I am so proud of this panel, and all the best. Nisha, all the best for your launch coming up soon. Hope it goes really well. Moulaye, Ayotunde, Amira, all the best. Talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. So we're rounding up as well. Moulaye, this question has been burning on my chest all evening, like, because investor attention seems to have sort of drifted away from e-commerce, you know, since we all know the reason why. Well, maybe that's not why, but it just seemed like, oh gosh, is it really working or not? And then right bang in the middle, like at the start of the year, Afrikrea, you announced that you've done your Series A funding, $1 million, and everybody's like, huh? Just right at the start of the pandemic, or it had started in some countries, and I don't know, it was just like, wow, such a major, I know clearly it was something you've been working on for a while, but I guess, how did you do that? I know you've been around for 8 years, you've done so much work, you have so much traction, the numbers definitely add up, but it would be great to, just tap into that sort of mindset to inspire us.
No, I can, of course. Like you said, actually, the funny thing is that that's our seed. It's not even a Series A, so we are probably going to do the Series A anytime soon. So that's the interesting part. And of course, the thing that people need to understand is that first, the press is reporting it as a seed deal, but it was something we did over the course of the year. So it's important to know that, of course, the majority of it was done, I think it was in December, right before we went to Ghana for the year of return. So, but most of it was just before the coronavirus crisis, of course. But what I can say is that you were right. Investors definitely don't like e-commerce. They like fintech a lot in Africa. Yeah. Basically, if you do fintech now, you're getting money thrown at you, like everyone you can take. Everywhere. Yeah, anywhere. Like, if you don't even care. Fashion is the worst. It's interesting because the more I was going in the process of raising funds, the less I was talking about fashion. Because basically, first of all, I was only talking to men. So that was from the start. 90% of my customers are women. So basically, I'm not trying to explain to them what is actually happening in the process of my clients. They cannot relate and they don't really want to. So honestly, my pitch to raising was, like you said, it was numbers. You just pull out numbers. There is not much things to do. And another thing that I noticed in the raising, and that is pretty important, I think, is that you cannot convince people to give you money if they don't already have the conviction. The people that I raised money from were people that already were convinced that Africa has talent and that commerce has a future. I just came in with the numbers to show that I was the one doing the right thing in the right space. But all the people that I lost a lot of time talking to people that actually wasn't already believing in that. And a lot of people will be there talking to you because they want to learn, but they're not willing to invest. So for me, the big lesson that I always give now to people regarding raising funds is that raise funds, but try to focus on having people that are talking to people that are interested in what you do. It's difficult to get someone that's not interested into what you do. And the numbers speak, because for us, I remember one of the questions that they always ask is, how do you know you're not going to burn down like Nasty Gal? How are you sure that you're not going? No, that was the actual question I asked. Yeah, people asked me, like, Nasty Gal died all the way when she was doing girl boss all over the place. How are you going now to explain that to us, that fashion in e-commerce is still working? I think Boo also, or someone else died a few, like there was a lot of things happening at the same time. So for me, it's always the same. I'm lucky that we don't do curation. So it doesn't, another thing is that we don't rely on my own taste. I have no taste at all. I absolutely have no taste. I don't even try to pretend. I don't like luxury like most of you guys. I just look at the numbers. I'm just look at what is selling. And if luxury is selling, I'm selling luxury. If like Sarah and affordable thing is selling, I was selling that. So I think that's also something that helps because the numbers speaks. I know that one of the things that helps is that I think we do the white paper fashion report in 2018, like when we shared all of our data and all of our learnings. And of course, people, when they see the data, they see that we have a very structured way of seeing our business and working. But I remember that one thing that helped is definitely the growth, because when I did the white report, we had, I think, $2 million of transaction over the time. And I think the year I raised last year, we did 2 million, just the year. So in 3 years, we do 2 millions. In the last year, we do 2 millions. And now we are in a cumulative of 5 millions, but we're probably going to do more than 6 million this year. So it's all about numbers. Like you,
the numbers game.
Fundraising is numbers. In my opinion, in my experience, is numbers.
I mean, what you have to your advantage is also scale, right? And I think that's why, I mean, unlike luxury, that's kind of your
exactly. No, that's the thing. That's the thing. Like I know one of the investors I met was the one that invested in Farfetch. So they told me the same thing. Even in luxury, you have to have scales and numbers. There is no way around it. People don't invest in only vision. They invest in numbers, and then if you are the one bringing the vision, they can see for the future. They trust that. But I've been busting myself trying to get people to adhere to the vision, but the numbers are the one that did the job much more than I did.
Okay, thank you for sharing numbers with us. It's really quite comforting to know that when we, I guess, it is possible. And you've been at it for 8 years or 9 years, so yeah.
Ooh, that's something like that. I think we started.
That's really good. So we have to round up now, so I don't take too much, any more time. It's Friday, and I'm sure everyone's got stuff to do. So is there one thing? I mean, there are a few questions coming up, but is there one thing you want to leave us with? Any, I don't know, like a one-liner or something of what to expect or something. Thank you. Just something to leave us with, especially someone like me who's, I mean, for us at Lagos Fashion Week, yes, we present designers and we see all of the talent, and it's important that we forge strategic partnerships with people like yourselves, as opposed to thinking, oh, maybe the next task we have is to try to build an e-commerce platform. I always strongly believe in collaboration, co-creation, and just looking for ways to do things together. So if so for me, so that's one of the things that inspired this conversation, to explore how we can tap into different conversations with companies like yourselves and platforms like yourselves to be able to support the brands that we work with. So is there any parting words you'd like to leave us with as we round up?
I'll leave you with cream. Cash rules everything around me. It is what I think is going to be able to put Africa and the people in the diaspora in a better position. I'm 100% that person who says once we have money, they can't tell us nothing. So that's what I'm gonna leave you with.
Okay, thanks, Amira. Nice. Nisha, what are you leaving us with?
I mean, not as poetic. I mean, we are going through the most pivotal moment, and we're launching, in my opinion, what is one of the most game-changing platforms on the continent. We are a continent-based, continent-bred company that's serving the world, and I think that's what kind of makes us unique in our perspective. So stay tuned, and you'll see us in your Instagram/media/channels coming up.
Good, exciting times ahead. Ayotunde, what are you leaving us with?
I guess what I would say is there's just many ways to skin a cat, and we all are here and deserve a seat at the table. So I think with Jendaya, what you guys can expect over the next few months into Q4 of 2020 is our e-com pilot, where we'll be selecting shoppers to experience that e-commerce that we've curated, that we've been curating, as I said, learning and unlearning to bring you the best possible luxury experience that includes both Western and African luxury brands and talent. So we're working hard at that, and we're excited to see what the year holds.
Thank you. And Moulaye, what are you leaving us with?
I think I'm going to use the last word that you suggested, Omoyemi, is collaboration. And of course, collaboration to get to the cream, because I really like what Amira suggested. I feel like we're going to do anytime soon a new version of our white paper on fashion, African fashion. And I feel like last time it was only our numbers. And I really would love that if from this discussion and all the I can get the input of everyone, sharing numbers, sharing experience.
That would be amazing.
Yeah, I loved when Amira explained also the story about the designers knowing how to dress their customers. That's something we see every day too, you see. And I think like for collaboration and for what you did already, and thank you for creating all of that, Omoyemi, is You create already a big platform for all designers, and I hope that we can help them train, even if it's not e-commerce. I feel like from e-commerce, we can also share a lot of data, a lot of insights. So I hope that from this white paper of any other format, we can help people train and collaborate together. That's really what I'm hoping.
Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. We have a few questions, and we're so sorry we can't take any more questions. We got carried away with this conversation. But if you please send us the questions, we'll direct it to our speakers, and then we'll get you the answers you want. But thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for taking time out. Thank you for spending your data on us. And watch this space for all the cream that's coming, because these guys are going, they're going right all the way to unicorn status. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks, guys. So nice to see you.
Bye.